Hello, D-Rock here. Welcome to the channel. I hope you all are well, and welcome back to part 2 of the Honda CRF300L versus the Yamaha XT250. Which one? All right, today we're gonna do the ride. So a couple things to point out before we start the ride. The Yamaha XT250 is air cooled. It has, 19 horsepower and 14 pounds of torque. The Honda CRF300L is liquid cooled, 27 horsepower, and it said peak torque was 19 pounds, but some other stats said 16, so let's just make it easy and somewhere in those numbers between 16 and 19. Also, neither of these motorcycles come with any wind protection. I put a Parabellum windscreen on the XT250 and have yet to put anything on the CRF300L. However, I will point out one thing, and I did mention this in the first video, but I'll mention it again, and that's the fairing on both motorcycles. The Yamaha XT250, as you can see, has relatively none. So you're not going to get any wind protection on your lower body from any type of fairing on the XT250. So something to think about. 300L is a bit of a different story. As you can see, it's a little wider out here, and you can really notice it from this angle how much it sticks out. Now I also have the Tusk tank saddlebags on here, so that gives me even more protection from the wind. But I don't have anything up here, and let me tell you, I get it up here. And one other thing, as I mentioned it in the first video, was the weight of the motorcycles. What do we got? 91 pounds for the XT250 and 309 pounds for the 300L. So I'll point this out. I weigh 170 pounds. I'm 5 foot 10 inches tall. I ride either of these bikes on a highway in high winds. I'm gonna get tossed around like a leaf. It's just the way it is. And today, if you can hear it at the camera, but wind's howling, so I'll get tossed around today. Good thing to point out. All right, let's not waste much more time. I'm gonna go ahead and suit up, and we're gonna start with the XT250 and go for a ride. So stick around. All right, on the Yamaha XT250. Got some howling wind today, so give you an idea of how I get blown around on this bike when I get on the highway here. But one thing I mentioned in the first video were the controls, and the controls, when I mean the controls over here on the handlebars, and on the Yamaha they're pretty small, so it's like 45 degrees. It might be colder right now. It's a pretty chilly day, and I've got some thicker riding gloves on, so manipulating these can be a little more problematic when you have thicker gloves on. And I pointed that out in the first video, but this is a good time to point that out again in this video while we're riding. And the controls, as you'll see on the Honda, are much more larger, so you got a thicker glove on, you can manipulate those a little better. That's I mean, it's not a big selling point with the bikes, but you know, it's something to think about. So the ride isn't going to be anything spectacular today on the bikes. I'm just going to do a little highway riding, and then I'm going to get on some dirt and do a little dirt riding, just as examples of what you can expect with either of these two bikes. I'm not going to take anything too serious or get into anything too gnarly, so just a heads up on that. But it's going to be a good ride, and as I mentioned in this video earlier, neither of these bikes come with any wind protection, so that's something to think about if you intend on riding these bikes on the highway for long periods. A little wind protection definitely goes a long way. All right, let's get on the highway here so we can see about the speeds of the Yamaha XT250, and away we go. It's breezy, all right. Woo. 45 miles an hour, piece of cake. let's get it up going to 55. So the Yamaha XT250 only has 5 gears. I'm at 50 now. That wasn't very difficult. And I'm now at 55 miles an hour. So the Yamaha XT250 will easily get to 55 miles an hour without a problem. Now, if you want to go faster than that, let's say up to 65, she will do that. Maintaining it can possibly be a little difficult. Once again, let's talk about the variables. Are you going into a headwind? Are you going uphill? How much do you weigh? All these things to take into consideration. But as far as getting up to 55 miles an hour, which is generally the speed limit on most back roads for the most part, I guess 55 to 65 realistically. And the Yamaha doesn't have a problem holding or maintaining those speeds for the most part. And as I mentioned earlier, I weigh 170 pounds, stand about 5 foot 10 inches, so there you have it in regarding those speeds. She will get there, not a problem. So as I mentioned earlier as well, on the Yamaha, I do have the Parabellum windscreen. I added that, and it does make a big difference with the wind. It doesn't really blow anything into my face or catches the helmet or whatnot, and having that little extra protection does help out on a longer ride in the wind. So here I am maintaining 50-55 miles an hour. That is not a problem at all. I'm into the wind. Wind is definitely pushing me around a little bit. This is a very light bike at 290 pounds or so. So you will get pushed around in some wind. If you're considering one of these bikes, the Yamaha XT250, one thing I've pointed out in the past with this motorcycle, I say if we're going to do a long ride on the asphalt, is the positioning of my body. And that's definitely one of the cons of this bike for me. And now this all depends on how tall you are, but for me, longer rides can become quite uncomfortable just because of how squished up I am on the bike. And you can see, I feel like my knees are almost to my chest at some point, and I'm hunched over, and that'll get really uncomfortable after a while of riding. So that's something that certainly should be taken into consideration with the Yamaha XT250. If you're intending to ride for long stretches on the asphalt without standing up, then this could be a problem. And as I also mentioned, the stock seat for the Yamaha XT250 is simply horrible. It's, I think, the longest stretch I've ridden at a time on this bike is maybe 100 miles, and man, I was coming out of my skin. I wanted to get off this bike, let me tell you. So you'll want to add a pad or get a seat concepts or something of that nature. So those two things are some pretty good cons for the Yamaha. The position of your body and the seat for longer rides. Okay, time to get on the dirt. And this is where the XT250 really shines, to be honest with you. Personally, I think this little bike's got plenty of power. And due to its size, being light and nimble, you can really take advantage of off-road situations in this bike. And you won't notice how bad the seat is because you can stand up a little more while you're on the dirt. But this is definitely a great bike to ride on trails light technical stuff, and you know, you even want to take it into some enduro stuff, she'll handle it. Suspension wise, for me, I don't feel the need that I'm gonna have to deal with the suspension, like modify it at all, so I have no intentions of doing that on my particular bike. It handles the way I ride just fine. Accessing the rear brake, front brake, not a problem. And this is what I like. I can get down really easy on this bike. I can stand easy, flat-footed, not a problem. That's confidence inspiring when you're tooling around out in the dirt. And this is really where the Yamaha shines, more so off-road than on-road, for me anyway. All right, now here we'll get into some good chunk here. I dropped this down to first, and she's got some really good climbing. She'll go right up this stuff, not a problem, effortlessly. She can really get into some tight spots because she's so nimble. So if you're looking to do more work like this, I think the Yamaha XT250 shines a little brighter than the Honda. The Honda can handle all this stuff just as well, but if you want to get a little more technical, it's going to be the 250 for me. Let's go up this here. She will just cruise right on up. Whoa. Nicely done. Nicely done. So a lot of times with the Yamaha, I'll trailer it to a spot I want to ride. For example, I'll trail it out to Death Valley or up into the mountains or something like that, instead of riding there, if that makes sense, just because it's not very comfortable to ride this bike for long distances on the asphalt. However, one of the drawbacks on the dirt as far as standing up is, which I could possibly, which I intend to do, is just to get some handlebar risers to bring this up a little higher, because you're still crouched over a little far. That can become uncomfortable, but honestly, I haven't noticed it too much when I'm riding in some light technical stuff. So that is a mod I intend to do in the near future. And one other thing to mention, just purely as a note, is that with the Yamaha here, and maybe it's just my model, but I've laid the Honda and the Yamaha down plenty of times, and the Yamaha, the gas tank seems to leak. If I've got it full or whatnot and it's laid down, gas is just gonna leak right on out, lots of it. So the seal I guess isn't that great. Now, this could just be my particular motorcycle, but from my experience and all the times I've laid it down, this Yamaha here will leak like hell. So if you're looking at both of these bikes, whether it be the 250 or the 300, I don't think they're too intimidating power-wise. And what I mean when I say that is, if you hit the throttle on either of these bikes, I mean, it's not going to stand up and buck you off. This is a pretty big deal for a lot of people, being able to come to a complete stop on the bike and be able to touch the ground flat-footed without having to be on your tiptoes. I know a lot of people find that a little more comfortable than coming to a stop and having to maneuver yourself on your toes and stuff. But you can actually get around that. You can learn to kind of shift on your hip a little bit and get on one leg, or choose where you stop and things like that. But on the XT, it definitely is a little better in situations, being able just to get both feet flat on the ground. The Yamaha, as well as the Honda, going uphill, they lack power for that, so you'll have to drop down probably, but they'll get up it. You're just not going to get up it fast. So neither the Yamaha XT250 or the Honda CRF300 came with handguards. You're going to have to put those on yourself, and I like the Acerbis X Factor handguards. They've got a little more coverage, so in the cooler weather, colder weather, I got less wind on my hands. They've worked great on both bikes. Just thought I'd throw that out there as well in regards to wind protection, hand protection. All right, once again, cruising is not a problem, getting up to 55 miles an hour on the Yamaha. And I'm into a strong headwind right now, and she's heading upwards to 60, so there we go, 60 miles an hour, not a problem. You can maintain this, no big deal. Now once you get to about 65, you're definitely going to feel like the bike's pinned out. You're really ringing it out there. And like I said, I have gotten this bike to 70 miles an hour, a little faster, maybe 72, but I had a little assistance, tailwind, downhill, things like that. But she will get there. Maintaining that speed, pretty difficult. And as far as riding the Yamaha on the interstate, definitely doable, but the first time a semi passes you, you may think twice about it. All right, time for the Honda CRF300L. Now, one thing I will notice right off the back immediately is the size of the bike versus the Yamaha. It is significant and noticeable. So you go for a test ride and you ride that XT250 and then you get on the Honda, or vice versa, you're gonna have a noticeable difference in the size of the bikes. That immediately jumps out at me. Wow, okay, I am definitely on a bigger bike. You can definitely tell I'm on a bigger bike. Extremely noticeable, and that's gonna be a big deal for me for long-term comfort on the asphalt. Like I mentioned, my height is 5'10", and my body feels much more comfortable on the Honda riding than the XT. My knees are lower, at a better position. I'm not hunched forward. Everything is just better all around on the Honda for me than the XT. Now, if you're a shorter rider, this may not be true, but as I've said before, the ideal thing to do is to sit on both bikes and to take both bikes for a test ride. Once again, whoops, see, I get it. The controls are opposite on the Honda and Yamaha. So on the Honda, the horn's above the turn signal, so I go to hit the turn signal and I hit the horn. But while I'm mentioning that, as you can see on the controls, like I mentioned in the first video, they are much larger, so manipulating them with a thicker glove is so much easier on the Honda. And also on the Honda, this bike doesn't come with any type of wind protection, so I got no protection in front of me right here, and it also doesn't come with the handguards. So I also have the X Factor handguards on the Honda as well, and they just give me, I think they're great. They give me a little more coverage here and there for less wind on my hands in the colder months. They work really well. Now this is where you'll also feel a big difference in the bike, is when you're coming to a stop. I'm on my toes right here, and that can be a little intimidating for newer riders. The suspension on the Honda does squish down a little bit. It's got a squishy suspension, so that helps a little, but it's still a very tall bike versus the Yamaha. All right, here we go. Getting to 50 miles an hour on the Honda is not a problem. 55. Not a problem. Unlike the Yamaha, the Honda has 6 gears. So, once you get to that 55 mark, dropping into 6 really makes the ride smooth. Now, does the 6th gear work? It's negligible. You get into climbing any type of hills or anything like that, you're gonna lose it. And I've done multiple videos illustrating this with the Honda, where I've got it pinned out at like 65 miles an hour trying to go uphill in 6, and I'm just dropping and I have to go back down to 5th. So, you know, if you're on a flat stretch of highway, dropping into 6, you're cruising, man, enjoying the ride. But if you got to go uphill, that 6th gear is, it's pretty much worthless. So maintaining 55 miles an hour is easy on this bike. For me, even in a headwind going uphill, I don't have a problem. Speeds higher than that, 65, 70, yeah, it can be a little interesting. But it's also the same for the Yamaha. Now I got a little more power on the Honda, and you definitely notice that difference highway riding, and this is where the Honda definitely shines. This bike is, well, it's very comfortable to ride on the highways for longer distances. I've done 200, 250 mile trips steadily on the bike, and I mean, it's doable and a lot more comfortable than the Yamaha. Like I mentioned, the stock seat on the Honda isn't that bad. I have the seat concept seat on this bike and the extra large, and it definitely makes riding a joy. But with my body positioning, I feel a little more stretched out on the Honda versus the Yamaha, therefore adding to the comfort of long distance travel on the asphalt. So if I want to ride on the dirt and the distances are farther, I'll just ride there with the Honda versus trailering the Yamaha. All right, that little bit of extra fairing down low helps with some wind protection, and with these tank saddlebags, my lower body is doing quite well on this cold day in the wind. All right, now it's time for a little off-road action with the Honda. So this is also where the Honda shines for me, and that is standing up on this bike. It literally fits my body perfect. I'm pretty satisfied with the stock foot pegs. I'll eventually swap them out, but they work pretty much just fine for me when I'm off-road, and I am not squunched down on the bike like I am on the Yamaha. I mean, everything feels right when I'm standing up on the Honda. And in case you didn't catch it, I stand about 5'10", so everything feels great standing up on this bike. Much more comfortable than the Yamaha. And the Honda can definitely handle its own on the dirt. I definitely have some confidence on this bike as well. A little more on the Yamaha, to be honest, but you can definitely get in some trouble on the Honda. No doubt about that. But a lot of times when I'm stopping, I'll stop places where I can get my foot down easy. Like you can see, it's angled up, so I can stop. I can lean over real easy like this, because if I just go somewhere flat with the Honda and I gotta stop, I'm on my tiptoes. I cannot stand flat-footed, even with the suspension squished down on this bike, and that can be a little intimidating. All right, Honda will climb up this stuff just as easy as the Yamaha. Whoa. But I'm definitely a little more comfortable doing stuff like that on the Yamaha than the Honda. Steep and loose right here. Well, the Honda gets up this easily too, but once again, whoa. I find it much easier to do stuff like that on the Yamaha. But it's no doubt the Honda can shred. Both bikes can shred, for sure. Let's just say that both bikes can definitely handle themselves, and they're quite capable off-road. Whether it be riding forest roads, dirt roads, trail riding, light technical work. And the XT250 is going to edge out the 300 when you really get into it, just because it's a smaller bike. It's a little more nimble than 300, and you've got a little more control over the bike, I think, mainly because feet on the ground, man. You can do all these things a little better on the 250 than you can the 300. Let's go. Let's go up that. That looks fun. Yeah, the Honda will scoot right on up this. Not a problem. The Honda really is a capable bike. It's probably more capable than I am. But I seem to ride a little better in more technical terrain on the Yamaha. Maybe that's just because I've had more time on the Yamaha, since I've owned it for a little longer. I mean, who knows? But both bikes, like I said, are definitely capable. Ooh, all right. And this is one other thing to note about the Honda, for me at least, is that off-road, I don't have to spend as much time standing because, well, the bike's just that much more comfortable for me to sit on. So if I got some tame dirt road to ride on, I'm not really looking to stand. I can comfortably cruise sitting down, whereas on the 250, I'm the minute I can start standing on that bike, I'm going to. So once again, it's the best thing to do is to sit on both these bikes and to test ride both of them. And going uphill with the Honda, the same as the Yamaha, you'll definitely notice kind of like a lack of power, but they will get up the hills. They're just not going to get up them very fast. So we're going to get her back up to 55 miles an hour and cruise for a second. We don't have any problem doing that. Even with a good strong headwind, she'll easily hit 50, 55. So if you're looking for a bike to do long cruises on back roads, asphalt that is, maybe a longer adventure ride or something of that nature, or taking the back roads to get to the trails, this is better. This is definitely the better of the two bikes, the Honda. So getting her back up to 55 is not a problem. Strong headwind and maintaining that speed, once again, not a problem either. And it'd get right on up to 60, 65. Getting beyond that, yeah, you're gonna have some difficulties. You know, you need to think about your variables. Wind, how much you weigh, going uphill, downhill, all that kind of stuff makes a difference. But simply cruising along 55, 60 miles an hour, you're not going to have a problem with this bike. So which is the better ride? Well, I'd have to say overall, for me, the Honda's the better ride. And I say that because the Honda is much more comfortable due to my body size on the asphalt for long distances and off-road. Now, if we're talking about off-road, strictly off-road riding, and I want to get into something above light technical work, then it's going to have to be the 250. As I explained, if I want to get into some really gnarly stuff, usually I'll just trailer the XT250 there. If I want to ride to the trails and ride in some dirt, forest roads, trails, things of that nature, I'll just ride the Honda the whole way there. So overall, yeah, the Honda probably wins for me. That's not saying the 250 is a bad bike. It's not. Both bikes are fantastic, and luckily I own both. So there you go. There's your answer. Get both. Okay, well, I think that's a wrap on that. I'm going to do one more video kind of putting everything together, and we'll go from there. So the ride went well. Both bikes can handle the asphalt. For me, the Honda handles the asphalt a little better. Both bikes can handle off-road riding. Now, depending on what you get into, the Honda can handle off-road just fine, as can the 250. The Yamaha, however, can handle a little more gnarlier terrain, for me, better than the Honda. So there you have it. Ultimately, you have to ask yourself what you're going to ride in, where you're going to be riding, how you're going to be riding, all these questions, and always sit on the bikes, test ride the bikes. But both bikes will perform well on the asphalt. Both bikes will perform well in the dirt. Yeah, I know, it's a tough one. As always, folks, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe out there. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It helps us out tremendously. We'll see you next time. D-Rock out. Adios.